Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our live stream this week. You guys are so lucky to have George and I today. Josh had to take the day off, and so it's just going to be us leading PD today. So thanks for being here. We're going to, I'm going to start us off with just a couple of announcements, and then I'll pass it out to George so he can get us started. But so just a quick reminder, I know you've gotten some emails and some other reminders. Our Good Teaching Conference is coming up in February. And so it's a regular workday for certificated staff. And so we'll all be there for sure. It'll be virtual, very much like the tech conference in the fall. So my understanding, George, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is a lot of the logistics of doing the virtual conference for GTC this year is going to be modeled after ATC in the fall. And so it'll be very similar. You'll get more details as we get closer to the date. But we are presenters at GTC. And so if you're interested in presenting, sharing a strategy, something that's worked or hasn't worked, because there's value in knowing that, you know, things don't always work the way that we want, but we adjust. And so if you're interested in presenting, you can use that bit.ly. I know Mrs. Ansel has also sent out some reminders with the direct link for you to submit a presentation. The deadline isn't until February 10th, and so you still have a little bit more time to think that through. But if you're interested, please fill out your submission to present. If you haven't heard, we're also holding Kid Booms. And so if you're new to the district, you may or may not have heard of these, but if you've been in the district, we've done them before. Kid Booms are student presentations. And so we're having them again at GTC this year. And I mean, there's a little bit of a spin because we're in remote instruction, but we're still having them. And so if you want some more information, the submission form, you can go to this bit.ly. Again, I think Mrs. Ansel has also given you some information and the link through an email as well. So if you want some more information, please definitely look into that so we can have some student voice represented at GTC.
If I may, Celia.
Yes.
Just with regards to Kids Booms, you know, if you're not familiar with them, when you click on that link, it will actually give you an example of what it's going to look like, a video of past. It's going to be a little bit different again because we are in remote instruction, but you can see that. And if you share that with your students, some of them may really be jazzed up about wanting to do this. So there's some examples on the free. So hopefully you will consider that and your kits will be on display.
That's a good point. Thank you, George. I think this might be the last reminder, but we've sent out an email about this feedback form. And so we're halfway through the year. It's about to be February, and it's been, oh my, what an interesting year. And so we are trying to just plan ahead and think ahead and trying to make things as relevant as possible. And so we've sent out this feedback form to ask you all to give us your feedback in terms of how things have been going, but also some topics that you'd like for us to address during the live stream. And so it's a pretty quick form. Not all of the questions are required. Very first one I think is just in terms of like, what do you need? What kind of support do you need? But if you can please, if you haven't already, give us your feedback through this form. You'll get a copy of this slide deck. It'll be on the remote instruction website. We've emailed the link so that you can just click directly on the link to give us that feedback. But please, if you haven't already, do so as soon as possible. We'll probably be closing the form next week. And so as soon as possible, that would be phenomenal. Just another quick reminder, as we usually do, if you have any questions, feel free to reach us out at edtech@alisal.org. Our office hours should be the same this upcoming week, so Wednesdays and Thursdays, 1 to 3 p.m. The link will always be the same, even if we have to rearrange something. It's always going to be bit.ly/Alisal help. And so you can find us there, drop by, say hi. We always like getting visitors. If you need to reach us, we'll be there. And just as a quick little preview, next week we're going to have first in a series of teacher clarity trainings. led by Ana Cordero. And so we invite you back next week. We'll give you some more information on a little bit more of description of what to expect, but just a quick little preview for next week. So that being said, today's topic is going to be probably, I wouldn't anticipate this being very long. It's probably going to be a quick review of some key things that have been added or changed, maybe a review of just some things that we've previously talked about, but just quick little things on some key tools for the district. Just so we make sure we're all kind of up to date, because as you know, like Google rolls out changes and little updates, and like there's always new kind of little things. And so we wanted to come back with just a quick update. And so if you want to follow along on this slide deck, the bit.ly is down below. So it's bit.ly/key tools, K and T capitalized in that. Just a reminder that we'll also be posting a link to the presentation on the remote instruction website once we're done, also published with the YouTube video of the recording. So you'll have access to it then as well. So just a quick little preview before I turn it over to George. And so today's goals include doing a review of Google Meet, in part because there are some things that maybe aren't or are new to you, but again, they're just Google Meet is one of those key tools that we need that are essential for remote instruction. And Google has continued to roll out improvements and changes. And so we've heard from a lot of people that just like having that review, having that second or third opportunity to practice and see it in action and review all the options is valuable. And so we'll go a little bit more in depth into some things we've already kind of touched on, and some just reminders and reviews of Google Meet, including breakout rooms, polls, Q&A, and just some general notes about the host settings in general. We'll do a quick little update for Google Jamboard and some ideas for implementation. We'll also finish up with a couple of just improvements and on Seesaw. And so again, we'll just kind of show you what that update is on the Seesaw side, and maybe give you a couple of implementation ideas for you. And so again, I'm going to send it off to George so he can get started with Google Meet. If you would like the slide deck, you can find it at bit.ly/key tools 2, since this is our second update. K and key, T and tools, capital. So with that, I'm gonna send it off to George.
Thank you, Celia. Hopefully everything's going well. Celia didn't mention the fact that this is the first time we're trying to do this from 3 different areas. That was our original plan, but we had to cut it down from 2 different areas, and we don't have all of our normal tools that we would normally have to do this. So hopefully everything will work out okay, and please be patient with us. Again, we're 1 person down and we're doing our best. So thank you for your patience. Let's go ahead and get started on here. And Celia, since I cannot see the screen, or please feel free to interrupt me, when questions come in or if I miss something. So we're going to go ahead and start with Google Meet. And as Celia said, Google's always looking, always making changes. I've started noticing this week a lot of UI, user interface changes. So with that, we thought it would be a good opportunity to go back and review these updates, or perhaps maybe you didn't know about these updates. So we're going to go ahead and start, first of all, with the first topic. And the first topic here is breakout rooms. And what I would say with you regarding breakout rooms is that, the work that you do ahead with your students can be really helpful. So we just, part of this is letting you know about the tools. We're also going to try to share with you some strategies that you can use to implement the tools, and then also some, perhaps some activities you can do with these tools, some, teaching activities. So first thing you want to do, I guess, with your students, you want to make sure you talk to them about a few things. It's like, when will the students when will you be using breakout rooms? How will you use them and why? So I think having a conversation with your students about that, especially the older students, can be can be really powerful. It can also be helpful to show perhaps a tour of the breakout rooms, and even show a video. There's a video connect that will be on the slide deck. Once you get it, you can click on it. That if you wanted to show the students what they will see as an interface, you can show that too. So again, preparing as you roll out breakout rooms is really important. Just like you would in a classroom, you would probably practice the collaborative structures or any procedures that you have in your classroom. So it doesn't change when we're in remote instruction. And finally, I would say model when you want to do this. I wanted to let you, and when I say model is, you probably want to go ahead and start with showing them how to use the tool, and then also practice it without content. It's very challenging for our students to be able to focus on learn a tool and content. So you want to break those up as much as possible and model it with something that they know. They don't have to think about very much, and it's something that they know. And I'll give you some ideas in a little bit. But getting started, how do you get started with breakout rooms? Well, you go ahead and you have you click on the activities icon, which is the triangle, square, circle icon on the right-hand side of your Meet, and then you will click on the breakout icon, which is just the two hands, hand passing the blocks to each other, and then you will click Set up breakout rooms by clicking the pencil icon. As soon as you click on that, you will go ahead and have a few options. Okay, you will go ahead and you'll have the opportunity to select how many rooms you want to create, what the time, how long do you want these breakout rooms to be open. You can go ahead, this allows you to shuffle the students. And then if you want to clear the rooms and everybody comes back to the main room and reshuffle them, you can do that by clicking clear. Okay, and once these settings are set up, you simply click the open rooms. Once you open up the rooms, there's a few things that you can do. First of all, you as a host can edit, can go ahead and edit some of these settings on here. And again, once you start these up, you'll get these two options. You can either edit the room or close the room. If you edit the room, what's mean by editing? Editing means rooms is you can actually name the breakout rooms what you wanted to. So if you're working maybe with the little ones on shapes, you could have squares, circles, triangles groups. So you can decide how you want to name those. And make sure that when you make changes to the rooms, including renaming them or when you're moving students on there, you want to go ahead and click Save so that the settings will take place. Now, and I will be showing you this through the demo too. Once you start the breakout rooms, beside each breakout room, you as a teacher will see the join icon beside each of the breakout rooms. That allows you to jump in between, the different breakout rooms. And at any time, you can click between any of the breakout rooms. Now, if you are done and you want to return to the main room, there's a leave icon on it. And that leave just takes you back into the main room. And we'll talk a little bit more about what you can do from those areas in a little bit. And of course, to close the breakout rooms, it's just as simple as clicking the little close room icon on here. And what that does is, depending on how you have set this up, if you click close rooms, a timer will start counting down on the students. I believe it's 30 seconds counting down, letting them know that the session's almost over. However, one little neat trick that a lot of people do not know is if you click on it one more time, it will close the breakout rooms immediately instead of waiting for the countdown to go on there. So you can close them at any time immediately, and it'll close them, and then all the students will get an icon that says return back to the main meeting room. So that is how the basic structure of how breakout rooms work. And again, we will show you once we go through these new features. We will go through this and show you a live demonstration of this, and hopefully everything will work the way it's supposed to. That's breakout rooms. Now, some additional tips and tricks for breakout rooms. I already talked about making sure that you practice using them and model without content. Things that you can use this for include you can practice with things like show and tell. Perhaps that it could be a SEL activity where it's not what's the square root of 64, those kinds of things, right? So you want to go ahead and separate the content from the tool here. A good idea too, and I actually got to practice this with kindergartners towards the end of last year. We went and practiced breakout rooms when they first launched. And we found out that really the best way to do this is to do it in small groups. At the time, I worked with the teacher, and we actually, I kind of helped facilitate that, or help the students use them. But there was a lot of practice, and it was just they were very, at the beginning of it, these were kindergartners, by the way, kindergartners. At the beginning, they were very short breakout sessions, and you want to make sure that that you keep those focused. That's one of the tips on here. Is you want to make sure that you don't just open up a breakout room for 30 minutes without any supervision. Again, you want to make sure that that you are checking in on them, that you are making sure that they're on task. Earlier, I shared with you that at any time you can go back to the main room. And one thing I wanted to let you know was that that any message that you send from the main meeting room goes out to all the breakout rooms. So if you were to send a message that says, "Hey, I just wanted to let you know that we have a 2-minute warning," from the main group, everybody in the breakout rooms would get that message. So that's a really cool tip on here that I didn't know. You may not know this also, but students can, at any time when they're in a breakout room, they have a button that says "Ask the teacher for help." And when they click on that, and that's something you'll have to model and show them how to use it. When they click on that, you as a teacher get a message anonymously that somebody has called you to that room. So therefore, you can go and check in on that group to see how they're doing. So, and that happens anonymously. So it's a good idea to make sure that you are teaching your students when and how to use that tool. As I shared earlier, the teacher, another tips is, as a teacher, you don't just want to be just in one room. You want to go ahead and go through all the rooms and try to moderate as much as you can, checking in on them, see how they're doing, make sure they're on task, just jumping in between them. You want to keep, like I said earlier, the time that you have those breakout rooms open short and focused. Again, you don't just want to set it up for 30 minutes and without any supervision and let them do whatever they want. Again, that would be like letting our students into our class when there's not a teacher there monitoring them. So, keep that time and task short and focused. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about breakout rooms, but actually breakout room settings are sticky. What does that mean, sticky? What that means is that when you create a breakout room in a session, you open up your session, you create a breakout rooms, and you rename, maybe you create 3 breakout rooms, you rename the breakout rooms, you put students in those breakout rooms. Once you close those breakout rooms, not the session, the breakout rooms, and you want to reopen them for a follow-up conversation, it will remember, it will remember the names of the groups. It will remember in which groups each student was, so it'll put them back in there into the group. So they are sticky, but they're only sticky while you're running the meet. So if you close the meet and start a new meet, those room settings will not be sticky. You'll have to reset them. I hope that made sense there. All right, and some implementation ideas. These all come from a group called We Are Teachers, and there's a link down here at the bottom right that you can get. It can be used for book buddies. Perhaps those of you that in the past would have, your 6th graders that would go read to your kindergartens or back or back and forth. Maybe it can be used for that, or perhaps just think about 2 students in your class. One of them might be a strong reader. One of them might be a struggling reader. They can buddy read. 4 corners debate, a jigsaw. Intervention groups, peer editing and feedback, that so you could kind of create groups around that. Literature circles, I know that some of us really enjoy using literature circles, and so do the students, so that's a possibility. Project-based learning, a choice board could also be possible. A share session, earlier I talked to you about how some teachers, the way that they are introducing that, actually when I modeled this with that kindergarten teacher, what we did is the students actually brought a toy and they shared it with a partner in the breakout rooms, and that was it. They shared it, and then they came back into the main room, and there was we went through a few rounds of sharing them. But sharing sessions are really a good way to build, first of all, to build room community, classroom community, and also hopefully to any SEL needs can kind of be addressed perhaps in there to some SEL needs. So share session and a strategy group. What do I mean by that? It could be something like, I think Kim would appreciate this. If we're working on a math problem and there's different strategies or different ways to solve it, you could create breakout groups with those strategies and then put students in there to solve it, and then to solve it in that way, and then maybe come back to the main room and share what they did. So so that, I thought that was a really cool way to use breakout rooms. All right, Celia, we are going to go on to polls, but before we do that, do we have any questions or anything that I might have missed?
We don't have any questions so much as, oh, actually there was a suggestion from Kim just now that she also would recommend maybe as an idea using it for a math debrief, which, yeah, makes perfect sense at the end of a lesson. I just wanted to, besides that comment, Mr. Ezekiel at Barden had a question. Mr. E, we'll get back to you about that. It was just something really specific to his situation, but I see you. We'll get back to you.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you for watching those for me. Okay, the second tool that has that has been rolled out and even updated since has been the polls tool. And what this allows you to do, it allows you to, of course, to gather data based on questions. And to start that process, you want to go ahead and, once again, start with the activities. You want to start with the activities icon here, triangle, square, circle. And then the polls actually has like a little voting, looks like a ballot box voting icon here that just to start the polls. And then you will go ahead and click Start Poll. As soon as you click Start Poll, you will have the place to type your question, as well as the options for the participants to select. And once you type that in and you select your options, you have three choices. You can either, let me zoom this in a little bit more. You can either delete that question, you can edit that question, or you can launch that question. So launching means it opens it up so that the students can respond to it. I did want to let you know also that you can actually, once you start a Meet session, you can create these posts in advance. Like if you have questions that you know you're already going to ask, you can create them in advance and launch them during your Google Meet as you are teaching. So you can prepare these questions in advance for your students. Unfortunately, all these questions are multiple selected response. So you can only, they have to select an answer. It's not open response yet. Maybe changes will be coming, knowing Google. All right. So once you open up the poll, as a moderator, you moderate the poll. So one thing that you can do too, as you are launching a poll, is you can go ahead and decide whether you want everyone to see the results or not. And you simply click on the little switch left and right, depending on what you want to do. Sometimes you may not want the participants to see the other results, but if you do want them to see the results, you want to go ahead and slide that on. And when you are done, perhaps you give the students, 1 minute or 30 seconds to go ahead and answer. You go ahead and click the End Poll. Just know that even when you end the poll, the participants can still view the poll. They just won't be able to respond to it. So they'll be able to see the poll questions once you launch it. They just won't be able to answer it because you have ended it. Finally, one of the things that happens is after the Google Meet is over, you will actually get an email report that tells you all the poll questions, how everybody responded, and so you have data there in case you need it for something. But that will be coming to your email, and you can open up the attachment to see all the questions you asked and the responses by individual people. All right, so some implementation ideas for you. This can definitely be used as a quick SEL check-in, and I'll give you an idea on here, again, with that kindergarten class that I worked with. At the beginning, one of the polls was, how are you feeling today? And a lot of kindergartners may not be readers at the time, so the teacher used emojis as pictures so that the students could select a happy face, a sad face, a frustrated face. So you can go ahead and use that for responses for a quick SEL check-in. And again, for the little ones, Bitmojis and pictures are very powerful. If you are in the middle of maybe a reading and you have an impromptu question, you can literally just type it in there and ask the question for your students as it comes up throughout your lesson. You can use it, of course, as evidence-based, for evidence-based responses. To collect math data. So if you are in the upper grades where the kids have to work on graphs and charts and stuff like that, think about, a lot of times there's data that a word problem gives them, why not collect data about the class and then collect that data to be used in some kind of math activity, whether it's creating or whether it's working on ratios or creating graphs. So you know, collect data about your own students, and you don't have to kind of rely on what's in a textbook. It's more personable, and you know, it's more it's more valuable to the students in your class. And of course, if you want to make some kind of voting decision in your class, you can easily do that. Think about, you know, those of you that are still running student council, and you want to go ahead and vote who your site represent, who's going to represent your classroom. You know, you could go ahead and create that question, and they can vote right away right there. So yeah, those are some ideas for you. Now, some tips and tricks. You're going to see this repeated over and over. You want to practice and model. Okay. I wanted to also let you know, I shared earlier that the poll settings are also sticky. And again, they're sticky within the Meet session. If you start a new Meet, you have to restart, you know, you have to recreate the polls. But you can create the polls in advance and then open them up, and those will stay there until you close the Meet. I already talked about being able to create the polls ahead of time. You can also create multiple polls, so you can use them throughout your lesson as you're moving down. Again, using emojis in polls can you know, are just very easy, and the students, you know, love using emojis, so that could be helpful. And consider when it's appropriate to have students, you know, view each other's, you know, others' responses. Again, your choice, depending on what the purpose of your activity is, whether you want them to see the responses or not. And that before we move on to the third piece of this tool, any questions, Sally, or something I should repeat perhaps?
Not about polls, but we did have a question come in from Carol at Fremont. And so she was wondering how many breakout rooms can you open at a time?
Good question. It's actually 100. 100 breakout rooms.
Plenty of them.
Yep, so that should be more than plenty. All right, anything else?
Besides that, that was it. So all good.
Right. Thank you. So then the third piece that came, piece that was added to the activities dashboard is the Q&A. And again, to start this, you start the same way. You click on the triangle, square, you know, a circle icon. You click on the icon that has the hands, you know, lifting up with your students, and then you click turn on Q&A. Okay. So what does that do? So anybody, once you turn it on, anybody that's participating can ask a question by clicking on the icon on their screen and then typing their question, and then they click post. So anybody, any participant, including the teacher, can ask any question here. Now, once the question is asked, it's about managing and answering those questions. So one thing that you can do once questions are asked, because remember, once you open it up, any of your student can ask a question. You may want to filter those questions, and you can filter them in different ways. Here are some of the ways you can filter, and you can see them all. You can see the newest ones, the most popular ones, the unanswered ones. So you can filter them however you want. Now, participants, including the teacher, have the opportunity to upvote questions by clicking on the little thumbs up icon. Right now there's a 0 there, so that would be how many people have voted. So if somebody asked that question, how many other people have voted to have that question answered? Again, that can be very powerful if you see that a lot of students have a question on that particular or would like an answer to that particular question. So this is a really good tool to keep track of. And again, remember, you want to make sure that you teach your students how to use this and what this means when they do that. As a teacher, you can hide certain questions, and that could be for whatever reason. You can delete the questions, or you can mark the questions as done, as answered. So so those are what you can do once the questions show up, once the students or participants start writing the questions. And just like the polls, at the end of the Meet session, you will get an email with a questions report and as an attachment. And again, you will have the opportunity to take a look at the questions and all the data that goes along with that, including who voted, who voted for it to be answered and so forth. So you have that, or perhaps these could be questions that you could answer on the following lesson. So think about that when you're closing, if you're closing a math lesson And then, you may ask students, is there any additional questions? And then have them type their questions, and maybe people upvote, can vote on the most critical questions. And then at the next lesson, the next day, you could respond to those questions, right? So again, just an implementation idea there. Now, I wanted to share a few things about the Q&A. I want to make sure that people understand this is going to be hard for students, because I think it's hard for some adults. What that Q&A feature is different than the chat box. In the chat box, if you have it turned on, anybody could just go in there and type a question, but that is different than the question and answer feature. The question and answer feature must be turned on to use. Once it's enabled, participants can ask questions, including the teachers. We talked about upvoting those questions, and that the questions are visible until the host hides them and deletes them. And there's the report, and there's a report of all the questions asked and the name of who asked them. So think about that. There might be a student who has a certain question and they're the only one. Now you have a name to that question. You can follow up with that student, especially if you're working in small groups. If you want to create small groups, or you want to work one-on-one with certain students, during your office hours or so forth, that can be pretty powerful because the name is attached to the student that asked the question. All right, Celia, we're going to go into the host settings, but any questions on this section?
We did, and apologies, just because we're, I think we've mentioned this before, but in case you have forgotten, the live stream is slightly delayed from like where we are. It's just a few seconds off, and so like I feel like every time I'm like, okay, next section, we get a question for the previous section. But this question was from Heather at Creekside, and this might actually apply to both polls and Q&A, but thinking about students who are emerging readers. I think the question is asking, like, can poll questions, specifically about poll questions, be recorded, like audio recorded, so that those students who are emerging readers can hear what the question is versus having to read it themselves?
That's a great question. Unfortunately, as far as I know, that is not an option. And maybe a solution to that could be that, and I've seen them, teachers do this, is the teacher actually reads the question to the students, especially with the little ones, and then the students would just answer, because you're right, they are not readers. So I'm sorry, as far as we know, there is no option for audio yet. Who knows? Google keeps changing it.
That was it. So I think we can go ahead and go to the host settings for now anyway.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move to host settings. And this is kind of a pretty important part, especially because, sometimes we've had issues with students being in meets unsupervised. So a couple of things under Google has updated these host settings. You will know that you are a host because you will see this little lock icon, this little shield icon that we kind of keep talking about on there. And when you click on that, these are the settings. These are the host settings. And a few things. We're going to go ahead and start with the first section up here, which is the quick access. Probably one of the most important updates that Google has made to Meet. And the way that this works here is, if this is right now by default, when you start a new Meet, it's on, but you can turn this off. So as you turn this off from now on, as you turn this off, anybody that wants to come in to the Meet has to kind of knock, and you will get a little buzzer, and you kind of have to let everybody in. So that is, something that you need to consider there if you have some students that are going into Meets before you are, or if there's that kind of shenanigans going on. And I'll talk a little bit more, because what makes this so powerful is the fact that host settings are now sticky. Again, we heard what does that mean, sticky? That means that this Meet, for example, right now we are doing this through a Google Meet. And if I make any of these changes and then quit the Meet, the next time I come on, the settings will stick. They will stay the way that I left them. So if you don't want students sharing your screen, you would turn this off. And then next time you start the Meet, the students are not going to be able to turn on their screen. They're not going to be able to chat. Now, the part that makes this really critical is this part here, that if you turn off this quick access, and my recommendation, our suggestion would be that you do this. As soon as all your students, as soon as all your students are in, you want to go ahead and turn this off. And what this does, because what we have noticed, and actually this is this is within the last few hours that I was informed of this, what we are having some students do is a teacher will quit a Google Meet, they'll leave, and then the students, because sometimes there's a little bit of a lag between Google really shutting down the Meet, and students during that period can jump back into the Meet. And actually students have been doing that. The teacher will leave, and sure enough, as soon as they see the teacher leave, they'll jump back in, and the students can go in there and just have that room for free for to use as they please. But if you turn this off before all the students leave and before you leave, they will not be able to come back into the room. I hope that makes sense. Again, let me repeat it. If you turn quick access off, once you leave, since you are the host, students will not be able to come back in because the host has to let them in. I think I said it correctly. Hopefully that made sense. But those are the host settings. And again, they can be found in several places. One of the most easiest place to get them is from down in your Google Meet section. But you can also get them if you create an event in Calendar. There's also host settings there, which was kind of a new learning for me as we're preparing this PD. And here, as you can see, here is a Google Calendar event that we created, a sample Google Calendar event. Once you create a Google Meet link, you click on this little cog here, and you will get a very similar window to the one that you saw over there with the same settings. So these are what the settings look like for this Meet session. Notice that quick access, and you can turn it off and on from here on there. So that's another place where you can turn the quick access on and off for those of you that may be using links in your calendar. So 2 places for you to access those. And I believe, Celia, before we go into our live demo, is there any questions that we want to take? Because some of them may be answered during the live session.
Yeah, there actually hasn't been any about sort of the logistics you're talking about, but we had addressed this with some teachers, but I don't know if we had addressed it like in an entire live stream. And so I'm glad that this was brought up again. Cindy Anderson at Barden is asking about all these features, all the activity features, so breakout rooms, polls, Q&A. She's wondering why she may not have them. And so just a side note, Cindy is an SDC teacher at Barden. And so we've had this conversation with some of our special ed teachers. And so it may just be a license thing. And so my understanding, George, correct me if you had a different understanding, but my understanding was that some of the special education teachers didn't receive the enterprise license, which includes kind of these premium features. And so some of those special ed teachers didn't have that icon. It's not something we turn on or off. It's just associated with your license. And so if you're on your Alisal account and you've been allocated one of those licenses, you will have them. But I do know that as people had been bringing it up, I know that we've encouraged teachers to talk to Mr. Jaramillo about their need for these tools. And so I'm pretty sure that it's been brought up to him. And so we would definitely encourage a follow-up to that conversation in terms of if you see the need as an SDC teacher and you don't have that license, like please have a conversation, follow up, and purchase for additional licenses could happen, and then you should be good to go.
Yes, Celia, if I can add to that, that is correct. What happens is Google will only sell a certain amount of licenses based on your student population, and you have to use those up first. So our first priority was to give those resources to and I'm sorry, because I consider SPED teachers and everybody educators, but for teachers, classroom teachers that have a, I guess, think of Power School, you have a rostered class. I know that SDC, SDC does, but RSP does not. They have, kids going in and out. The psychologists, all those specialized positions, you may not have it. Now, if you're a regular classroom teacher and you do not see this, you probably want to maybe contact us and seeing what's going on. But if you are in one of those other specialists like SDC, psychology, SLP, and there's a need for this, I know that the district, once we exhausted our licenses, we did purchase more, and I don't know whether those had been distributed yet. So that's a good question. We will touch, maybe next week we'll touch base with Josh and seeing where we are with that process. But yeah, also touch base with your director, your SPED director, if you would like those features and you don't have them. All right, long way to say that, but there we go. Hopefully that helps.
Perfect. Other than that, you're good to go.
We're going to go ahead and move into a live demo on here. We're going to go ahead. We don't have students in class, so what we're going to do is we're only going to have one student in class, but we're actually going to go ahead and I've already have a separate meet. So let's see here. This is my meet on here, and I am the teacher. As you can see on the bottom left-hand side, oops, here. As you can see here, I am the host. You see the little host controls down here. If I click on it, you can see what that dialog box that I saw earlier. One of the things that I'm going to do right away is I'm going to turn that off, so that from now on, anybody that comes into this meet, they'll have to knock first before I let them in. And again, that will prevent anybody that doesn't belong here from coming in, and it will also prevent them from coming in after I leave. And after they leave, they can't come back in once I leave. So that's where the host settings are. To start breakout rooms, remember you want to go ahead and start up here where you see the little icon, the activities icon here. When you click there, you have three options: breakout rooms, polls, and Q&A. We're going to go ahead and start with breakout rooms. And in breakout rooms, as you can see here right now, this is where if you have your students going, all your students would show up down here. It'll have you as a teacher and all your students listed here. You want to set up the breakout rooms by clicking the pencil. And here's where you can go ahead and choose the number of rooms, up to 100, right? So I'm going to keep it at 2 here. And then here's the timer settings. For the timer settings, you can choose, down here. You can choose how long you want the breakout session. Again, try to keep those, especially as you're teaching the kids how to use this tool. You want to keep this to maybe, 2 minutes or 1 minute type of thing on interactions, just to get them used to how to use the tool. Later on, you may be able, especially with the upper grade kids, you may be able to extend that to 5 minutes. Or, again, you want to keep those focused and really, make sure you're moderating them. But I'm not going to change that setting, so I'll leave it like that. Now, if I don't set a timer, that means that I, as a teacher, will need to manually close the breakout rooms when I want them to end. So again, that's something that you need to decide whether that's something you want to do. The third option here is the shuffle option on here. And when I shuffle, there's only 2 of us right now. So when I shuffle, watch, I'm going to click shuffle a few times and see if it actually moves her, but may not move her because there's only 2 of us, right? Yeah, it looks like it's not going to move her because there's only 1 student. Notice that I, as a teacher, am in the main call, and we have 1 student right here in this breakout room. Now, as a teacher, I could clear everybody and start again, and then reshuffle and send them back in there. I can also, if there was 2 students that were in the same breakout room, but you don't want them together because maybe they don't work well together, you can actually just click on the name and drag it to where you want. I'm going to drag it to room 2, and now Celia here, as you can see here, is in room number 2. Okay, so and you can do that, and you can bring them back up to the main call if you want on there, right? So again, you can put them wherever you want. So I'm going to put them in breakout room 1, and of course, if you click clear, it will delete everything, and you'll start over all the settings that you have on here. Now, the one piece that I wanted to show you earlier was that you can also rename the breakout room. So I have breakout room 1, breakout room 2. I can go ahead and actually rename this, right? And I can go ahead and call this green, and then I can go ahead and click apple, right? And I can name this one red. Oops, and there's a red apple there. So there you go. So as you can see there, now I have my two rooms renamed. And again, that could be very helpful for the students that are not readers. Just go to the green apple, go to the teddy bear, go to the rainbow, whatever you use on there, okay? That way they know where they're at. And once you're ready, your settings are done, you want to click down here at the bottom where it says open rooms. When you open the rooms, this is what it's going to look like on the right-hand side. And notice, first of all, you'll see that it says on your screen, breakout rooms are in session. So you'll get that, and so will the students on their screen. And on this side, if you will notice that I have put Celia in there, but she hasn't joined yet. There she goes. Now she joined. Now you see that she's in there. She's actually in there. Because what happens is when you open breakout rooms, the students get a notification on their screen that says, hey, you've been invited to the green apple room. And then they click join, and that's how Celia was able to get in here. Okay, so that's Celia in there. Now, one of the things that Celia can do, Celia, you're reading my mind there. One of the things that Celia can do is that she can ask for help. And just so that you know, remember, none of the other students in that group, in that room, would get to see that. Only I see it as a teacher. So I could literally, right now I'm in the main room, I could go ahead and click join. And now I will be in, now I'm here in the room with Celia here, right? And I can kind of, okay, what's going on? Did somebody, you know, and I could, in this case, if, you know, I could just pop in and maybe, you know, the student doesn't necessarily want to share in public why they called me in here, but I can at least come and check and moderate, maybe check in with them later as to why they called me in if it's something that's private on there. So that's how that could work. Now, as a teacher, remember, you want to keep, if you have 5 or 6 rooms on it, you want to keep moving between them. So you have choices on here. You can go ahead and click join. Just click, and join allows you to just move to the other room. So now I am in the red apples group on here, right? And as you can see here, there is no, you know, there's nobody else in there. It's just me. But that's how you would move between rooms. You click the join beside the room that you're in. Now, if you want to leave, now if you want to go back to the main call, you simply click leave, and it'll take you back to the main room. Now I am in the main call, the main room, and Celia is still in the breakout room. So one of the things that I can do is I can go ahead and click close rooms. And it says, you know, it'll give you a warning that they'll have 30 seconds. And now you see up here, you see the timer counting down, and all the students will see that on their screen too, that the breakout session is about to end. And remember, you can let it just count down, okay? Or if you had set the timer, it would have started counting down when there's 30 seconds left. But if I just want, I have 13 seconds. If I want to end the call, I can click close the rooms right now. Close all rooms. Okay. And now one of the things that I wanted to let you know before Celia leaves over there is I closed the rooms. Oh, Celia, she probably clicked. No problem. I have to admit her back in. Notice I had to admit her back in because I turned that off earlier. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you was that that when you close out the rooms, the participants of the breakout rooms actually get a notification, right, Celia, that said, join the main room, right, to go back to the main room? Something
True.
to that effect? Yeah, so that's what they get. They click on that, and that's why Celia came in. Now, one thing that you noticed was that I had to let her in again, and that makes sense because remember, I changed and I hadn't done this, so this is kind of just learning as I go here, because I had turned this off. That's why she had to knock again. So probably a good practice would be to turn this, if you're going to use breakout rooms, to turn it on. But before you leave, before you end your Google Meet, turn it on so that the students, turn it off so that the students can't be coming in once you close the session. So I don't know whether you noticed that, but that's why that happened. I told you earlier that right now the breakout rooms are closed, and I'm going to go back so I can show you this. So as you can see here, I have the polls here, but in breakout rooms, if I click breakout rooms again, I'm in the same session. Notice that it keeps the rooms named, and if I click set up breakout, and I could go ahead and click set up breakout rooms right now, and notice how it remembers which room Celia was in, and if there was other students with her, it would put them back into that room. So again, that's what I mean about sticky settings. That these settings are sticky within the Google within the Meet session. So I'm going to cancel that.
Question,
All right.
George, since
Yes.
we're getting pretty close to 2 o'clock.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
First question is about recording. So this question's from Kim. And so if you record your Google Meet session, do breakout rooms get recorded?
No, they don't.
Thank you. And the other question was, I think we're all enjoying and see use in using the emojis like you did. Becca was wondering if you can show us how you got those emojis, please.
So there's multiple ways to do it. I'm going to go ahead and show you probably the easiest way is if you look down here in the chat, and you can use emojis almost anywhere. Down here in the chat, oops, right here in the chat, if I right click on my Mac, so with me, for me, it's 2 fingers. If I right click, I will get emojis and symbols right at the top. So when I click that, look what pops up. All my emojis, right? So that's one way to do it. And that's probably the only way I'm going to show. There's other ways, but that's probably the easiest way. So once again, you click on the field where you want to type, and then with 2 fingers, you on your trackpad or your mouse, or right click, then you click emojis and symbols, and there they show up. Okay. How are we doing? Time-wise, not very well.
Good for questions.
All right.
Yeah, and I don't anticipate the last couple of sections to be taking very long, but
let's continue through here. All right, so let me go back again. This is my session on here. I'm going to this time now work on polls. So here are polls. Again, it's in the activities console. You click polls, and what you want to do is you will get this icon, find out what to start a poll. Okay, so here's what you get when you start a poll. You can start your question. How are you feeling today? Oops. And remember, you can have these prepared in advance. So and then you could put on here. Remember, you can go back to the emojis. You can go ahead and put for the little ones, right? They can't do that. Maybe you have sad, right? And maybe one more. Angry. Oops. Shift Command. Angry. Oops. There we go. How's that? All right. So then once you have your question and your options on here, and you can continue to add options. I don't know how many. I haven't gone that far, but at least 5 that I've seen for sure. Click save. You can save it to use it later, or you can launch it. I'm going to go ahead and launch. And here's what you will see here. Now, as soon as you launch it, all the students will be able to answer on here. I can choose to have them be able to view the results or not. And notice that it says it's live. I'm going to turn it on there. And now they would be able to see the results. Celia, would you mind voting for me? How are you feeling today? There you go. So you can see that we have 1 vote on here from Celia. So it'll tell you how many people voted that way. It'll start creating little bar graphs here. And when you're done, you can simply click on the poll, and you're done. You can also create another poll if you want. So I'm going to click end poll. And remember that you will, when you end this session, you will get an email with a report about this poll and how everybody answered. Pretty self-explanatory, I think. And probably no questions on that, right, Celia?
All good so far.
All right, we can always come back to it. The third one is the Q&A feature. Remember, this is different. Remember, here's the chat. Anybody could go in here and just start chatting, right? But to get to the Q&A, it's in the activities panel. Click on Q&A. You have to turn it on, okay? And once you turn it on, right now, you will see that there's no questions on there. Celia, if you want to go ahead and ask a question, that'd be awesome. There's no questions that have been asked, and any participant in the meet can come in here and type questions. As Celia is typing her question, as a teacher, I can type my own questions down here too, down here by click ask a question. That's where the student would also press to ask a question on their screen. You can also filter these questions by these different categories that I talked about. All questions unanswered, answered, or hidden. And of course, you can also put them on here from newest, oldest. So here we go. Look, here's Celia on here. Celia, can you upvote your own question? I'm just curious. Look, yeah. So look, see how she already has 1 vote on there. So if you can see, every time a student votes for answering that question, they simply will click here, like I just did. Now 2 people have voted for it. Once you are ready to deal with this question, you can maybe you've answered it and you can hide it, or you can click mark as answered if you want to. There you go. Now it's been answered, or you can delete it. So that's what you can do with the questions. And just like polls, when I'm done with this meet session, I'm going to get an email that has the reports of the questions that were answered, who voted, who upvoted them, and so forth. All right, I think that's it for my stuff, Celia. Let's take a look on here. Yeah, that is it. I'll take any questions if any questions have come in the last couple of minutes.
There have been a couple of questions, but I might just address those at the very end, just because we're pretty close to the end. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch us over to the last little bit of section. So just a reminder that we're gonna finish up with Jamboard and Seesaw for schools, and again, they're pretty simple updates. And then we'll get to those questions because I did see a couple things come in. And so for Google Jamboard, actually, this is going to be very quick. In case you haven't already heard, one of the newest features in Google Jamboard is being able to add custom backgrounds. And so we used to only have these that were already there, and the presets were the only things you could pick. And there are pros and cons to using them, but now if you click on set background inside of Jam, and there's going to be another option down at the bottom. So it's pretty simple. You just go ahead and click set background, custom background, and then you can either like search for one or upload one from your desktop or wherever it may be. And so you might be wondering, okay, why in the world does this matter? Give me some ideas. And so I made sure to add some ideas. And so if you think of like any type of like thinking map or graphic organizer, if you have a KWL or you have a thinking map, in those situations, you would just add the background so that the students do the work on top and they don't have to like bother with it or like just drag and like accidentally drag it in the wrong spot. Any type of like group work or again, a graphic organizer. I added this graph paper because although Jamboard does have like a this is just my opinion.
Sorry, Sally, you just cut out.
To be a little too small. Sorry, just checking on that. I think George mentioned that we're at home on our home Wi-Fi, and so we're probably seeing it come up now. But I was mentioning that I added this quad rule because I find that the ones on Jamboard that are already preset are a little too small for students to really use well. And so if you just don't want to use one of those presets, then you can just upload your own larger quad rule kind of graphic like this to make it work. You can just add kind of like a graphic background to a presentation that you're doing, just kind of for like visual purposes. Before we went on break, we also gave you some ideas for like art implementation. And so you could like do this kind of idea with a doodle in the background and then have students just finish it on top on the Jamboard. And so here are some ideas for you. Again, pretty simple. In terms of Seesaw for schools, there are two things we were going to mention. If you're using like a document camera or a secondary webcam or a secondary device, and you end up having more than one camera attached to like your workspace, sometimes when you're using programs like Seesaw, right? In this example, someone is taking a picture through their document camera. Sometimes when you use kind of secondary cameras or visual inputs, it ends up flipping and mirroring the image. And so if you do end up noticing that that happens and you're trying to take a picture with a document camera or some other kind of camera, and it's mirroring it and you need to fix that, obviously. Seesaw has updated their canvas to include this button up here at the top right, and that will correct the mirror image. And so again, it's just one of those small little things that will help you fix that. If you notice it's just not showing up correctly, it's probably because it's a secondary camera, especially with like document cameras. Use that button and it flips it automatically. Super easy. And last but not least, there is a new-ish feature in Seesaw. I just don't think we had mentioned it, which is pinning to the top. And so now, so you know how like you get your journal page and you start posting things and students start posting to their journal and it just ends up being a list of all kinds of things. If there's something that you need students to access readily, or something that you want them to come back every day, something that needs to be easy access, you can now pin to the top of the journal, so that again, students don't have to scroll. Ms. Alina sent me something 5 days ago. Where is it? Let me find it. No, Ms. Alina pinned it to the top, and so now it's the very first post or the very first activity. So you can either pin a post in the journal or an activity. This screenshot of tweet sent out by Seesaw is linked. And so if you want some more information about how to do that, you're really just, there's 3 little dots next to the activity or the post. You click on the little 3 dots. It's one of the options there. So if you need some more direction on how to do that, this is linked. It'll take you to the tweet. From the tweet, there's also a link so that you, again, can get some more information if you'd like. There's a YouTube video if you're interested. But yeah, there's a video on here also that outlines a teacher's, just as a kind of an implementation idea. He starts the video by like linking a bunch of like his weekly kind of organization activities. He links his meet, he links his schedule, he links a bunch of things. And then here at this point, he is sending it out to his students through Seesaw. And once he sends it out to students, because it's going to be pinned to the top, again, he just goes through the 3 little dots, pins it to the top, and now students will have access to that weekly resource all the way at the top for easy access. I think I'm going to switch over. Let's see if maybe we have some questions.
Sally, we don't. We have very specific questions, and if you answered it, we will make sure that we contact you one-on-one to answer those questions. So nothing new has come in. Plus, we're over time also. 2 minutes. We're gonna be in trouble by Josh.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
That's what happens when you give Celia the microphone, everybody. No. Anywho, so yeah, we've linked all of that for you. We've been answering questions as we go, so I'm gonna hand it off to George to close it off for us.
Yeah, we just, again, we want to say thank you. Thank you for being patient. I know things might have been a little bit weird because it's our first time doing this, collaborating and presenting remotely. So hopefully everything went well. Send out good vibes to Josh. He's not feeling well. He's not sick, nothing COVID, just, good vibes to him. And hopefully he'll join us. He'll be here with us next week. And like he always says, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and be good to our kids. Have a great day.